If you want to know what I think, I won't give that up for free. Put a penny in the crusher, on the back's my memory. I'll hold real still, you take the shot, but I don't want to see whether it turns out or not, it's all the same to me. If you want to know how I feel, put me down and walk away. My hands are already bloodied here in bed. I think I'll stay. In dreams I face dread most, mundane when walking down the street. My pounding heart shocks me awake the moment our eyes meet. All right, I was not going to do this tonight. Tonight is June 16th. It's 11:21 p.m. I was all ready to go to sleep at a reasonable hour, and then disaster struck, and I watched a sad show where someone died. And the show actually went heavy into doing the grieving, like talking about the grieving, and the 3 episodes after the person died, they're still processing the grief of the different characters. And I was like, all right, I'll read from my book about grief. Sure, let's do episode number 4. So, welcome to the 4th episode of Us at Our Worst, a caregiver's unvarnished account of cancer and dementia care. Each episode of Us at Our Worst will be available as a podcast for listening, also on YouTube for viewing, though I will be reading directly from the as of yet unpublished manuscript. I'll also be adding in commentary to help give a fuller picture of events. You can think of these talks like bonus episodes on a DVD, if you're old enough to have ever used a DVD. I also need to add some disclaimers. Us at Our Worst is a nonfiction account that covers topics such as terminal cancer, terminal dementia, and specifically what I believe was behavioral variant frontotemporal dementia. We're going to be talking about physical and emotional abuse. There's going to be a lot of swearing. We're going to be discussing acute depression, childhood abuse, downright madness, yes, madness, generational family trauma, and let's not forget drug addiction. So you've got this front row seat to a grim reality. Why am I going through with this at all? I mean, actually, I was going to ask a different question. I was going to say, why are you wanting to listen to this? You can post that in the comments, I guess. So back to my question, why am I going through with all of this? Because people shouldn't have to go through such things alone. Caregiving is lonely. It doesn't always have to be, perhaps, but it certainly was for me. And if even one person out there finds comfort in knowing that I went through and survived all of this, and it's the same thing that they're going through, then that is my why. It's to give them hope, or at least it'll let them know that someone understands what they're going through. All right, you're still listening? Okay, here we go. Us at Our Worst, episode 4, June 16th, 11:24 p.m. And where we left off in episode 3 was we were in Charlottesville, Virginia, and we had just done the big move into the free house that had been offered to us, and we had moved in the night before Mom's first big day of chemotherapy. So, here we go. And actually, before I start, yes, I'm going to just start with a sidebar. Still just noticing that it's what am I trying to say? It's harder to do this than I expected it would be. I've definitely been taking a lot more time to slow things down and spend time by myself in nature. Just sitting out there, pondering, being with things. It's just, yeah, it's definitely different When I originally was reading the manuscript, I mentioned this in episode 1, I had an invitation from these two awesome people that run a coffee shop here in Iowa City called Press Coffee. And they found out that all the editing that I'd been doing had to do with this book, this manuscript. And so they were like, hey, why don't you come and read some of that here? And we can also make it like a dementia caregiver support group. And so I would read a lot of these sections to a live audience sitting in front of me. That was definitely hard. But it's just interesting to me because I thought that after doing that this would be really easy just to read the book and just, throw a few sidebars in here and there. But it's challenging on a different level I didn't expect. Definitely bringing up a lot more. My mom is in my dreams pretty much every single night now since I started this. So pretty wild stuff. Okay. Here we go. Chemotherapy, day 1, Monday, October 28th, 2019. The timestamp of this entry just says multiple entries. And that's what I say when I've just got, I'm doing tons of entries over the course of the day. So I've kind of lumped them all in. And the locations that I'm sort of reporting from, I'll be reporting from lab rooms, chemo rooms, waiting rooms, the floor of a minivan, and the floor of a stranger's house. The setting of this first entry is I brought my laptop with me to the hospital and to keep an eye on those updates. So keep an eye on those updates. There are plenty that I typed out as the day progressed when I found myself with empty spots of time. Okay, so that little part right there, that I added in for context for the reader of the book, pretty much mirroring what I just said. All right, let's get on with this, Charlie. All right, update, 9:30 a.m. I woke up at 7:40 a.m. after only 5 hours of sleep. When we were trying to leave the house, Mom is sitting on the floor downstairs packing her purses. Purses? Yeah, 2 of them. 99% of the contents of which are never, ever used for anything. Never have been. We are talking about 8 pounds of purse weight total. And I have an acronym for that called PWT, purse weight total. Remember that. We were about to leave and we're about to be late. I ask about her blanket for the cold hospital waiting rooms. She says, which one? It doesn't matter, Mom. That hideous brown one from my bed. I wouldn't be caught dead in that. Okay, Mom, let's just go. No, I need a blanket. Well, that's the only one that I currently know the location of. She says, I'm not using that awful thing. It looks terrible. Okay then, let's go, Mom. But those rooms can be awfully cold. That's what she said at the end. And after she said that, I just quit answering. She says, well, I'm off to die now. She says this with a haggard, beat-down tone. I should say that differently. She says, well, I'm off to die now, with a haggard, beat-down tone. Yeah, that's how she said it. I suggest that she could change her perspective and maybe consider that she is off to kill the cancer. She says, you don't know what it's like to be in my shoes. We go to the hospital. There's a volunteer playing the piano in the lobby of the second floor, just outside the gynecological oncology clinic where we are waiting. I just took a break to go get some food at the cafeteria across Lee Street in the main hospital. I bring back a Coke for Mom, per usual. When I return, Mom has completed a vitals check-in. Tells me that she has lost 4 pounds since last Wednesday. She now weighs 187. She isn't depressed. She's a bit glad, a bit satisfied, but she faces like it's bad news. She's reading from the cancer playbook, and so, air quotes here, losing weight is what is supposed to happen. It's like a point of honor. She offers her false testimony. Well, That's cancer treatment, as a way to explain that she's been so terribly ill that she's already dropping weight. She isn't. Last night we went to the Virginian, a popular local restaurant. She ate a whole bowl of potato cheddar soup. She gobbled down a brownie a la mode for dessert, which was wearing enough whipped cream to win an award for too much whipped cream. But when her mouth wasn't full of food, she would take care to stop now and then and hold her stomach, wincing in pain. In those moments, she'd talk about how much the radiation was ruining her appetite. I'm over it already. Stop pretending, Mom. Pick a side. Anyway, today we're sitting in a waiting room for an hour before her appointment, so I leave to go get food again. Going to get snacks while stuck in patient waiting rooms is one of the few distractions you get. She says, "Oh God, I can't have any food, because of the treatments. I just can't hold down anything. Get me a Coke." I look at her without saying what I'm thinking, which is, a Coke? A Coke? Coca-Cola? Do you want some fucking sugar in that Coke? Because I can totally add that for you. Her request angers me way more than it should. I know that. I consider not getting one and lying, claiming that they were out. I bring it back. She's happy, but she isn't drinking it. She's just happy to have a goddamn Coke, because sugar, the proximity to it, I think, is like a safety blanket. Just having it close by literally makes her feel better. As you can guess, this makes me feel crazy. I literally feel crazy sitting there next to her and her unopened Coke. She leans over to Dad, says to no one in particular, I thought about getting lemonade, but the acid, I just couldn't take that right now, I learned today that on chemo day, you always get labs done to make sure that your system is capable on that day to handle the chemo. If you don't pass the tests, no chemo for you. The blood draw, etc., it's over in like 5 minutes. Then we are walking towards the specific part of the hospital to get the chemo treatment. It's a long hallway. Dad leads the way and charges up to the counter, not just by a little. We can't even see him. Mom and I trail by a good 2-minute walk behind him. He can't do anything until she gets there because she's the patient. He knew this, but he wasn't in his right frame of mind to remember, so he's standing there at the desk when we finally round the corner. We're still 20 feet out, and we faintly hear the nurse say, "Okay, well, sir, we still have to wait for her to come up and answer some questions." Instead of leaving and letting the other people in line take their turn, Dad just stands there, waiting. People in line behind him are kind of like, Then Mom and I finally catch up. We chat with the nurse. We are, of course, instructed to have a seat. Eventually, we are called back. We're guided through a maze of doors by a nurse, and once again, Dad is way out front. It's like someone is pushing him from behind. Instead of following the nurse, he's just charging forward to who knows where. Whereas Mom and I are trailing the nurse because Mom is tired and because we don't know where we're going. So we're led to a small waiting area. Yes, another waiting area. As I'm asking the nurse about where to sit, she says that we, Dad and I, can wait here if we wish or go back out into the main waiting area. The one we all just came from. So as I ponder this, Mom and I are getting settled into some seats and just figuring this all out. That's when we notice that Dad is gone. He had left without saying a word and bolted for the main waiting area. Mom and I sit. I'm chuckling about it. She leans over and whispers to me in her normal whispering voice. This voice is really just a raspy and completely audible, normal talking level voice, but she doesn't believe it when I tell her that. And anyway, she whispers to me, "Robert is having a very hard time. I think he's exhausted." Update, 10:30 a.m. We have our first official pre-chemo meeting with the gynoc, which is short for gynecological oncologist. It goes well. She says that Mom is dehydrated based on her labs, but that they will take care of that before her chemo today. And finally, This doctor says the thing I've been waiting for Mom to hear from a medical expert. The doctor says, this is going to be hard. You are going to have to work. Your husband and son are going to have to work. This isn't going to be easy, and we can give you the treatment, but you have to work at this. Well, thank God someone said it straight to her. After she left, Mom's sense of things was clear. She looks at me and says, I don't want to work hard. She hands me back the unopened Coke and says, as if I should have known all along, I can't drink Coke. It's too acid. It burns my stomach. Yes, Mother. I get up to go ask a nurse a question. It's at this point that I discover something odd. For Dad and I to be able to discuss my mom's case with her doc or social worker, we need to be added as care partners. Okay, weird. So we get that handled. And I'm just going to do a little sidebar here. That's a great example of how, at least as far as my experience is, every doctor office does it different. Every hospital does it different. Then different units within different hospitals do it differently. So, we had plenty of doctors who would talk openly with Dad and I about Mom's situation. But then in this one particular office, the chemo office, the nurses literally wouldn't answer my fucking questions about what was happening. They're like, oh, if you want to discuss your mother's case, you have to be added as a care partner. And, I was like, well, fucking tell me how. And they're like, oh, you just go over to that desk over there and they'll add you as a care partner. I mean, it only took 2 minutes, but it's dumb. The lack of consistency between hospital offices will make you absolutely insane. So I'm just saying, call ahead. Go into every office that you're going to be visiting as a part of your person's treatment and care plan, and go in ahead of time if you can. Get everything handled, so then you're not blindsided by weird things like that. All right, back to the story. Update, 11:32 a.m. The doctor says we need Mom eating nutrient-dense food. She says we need fat. Okay, but I'm wondering, what about Mom's 1 cup per day of sugar intake? Anyway, we're looking at the infusion guy, and we're about to start the big thing. We are starting with a lot of hydration. They say she needs 1 quart at least of water per day. I'm going to get 4 12-ounce bottles and label them accordingly to the time that they must be consumed by. They said that dehydration is going to land her in the hospital and make it so that they can't continue chemo, and then it will be radiation only. The reason for this is that one needs to be flushing the toxic chemo out of your body. If you are dehydrated and then also constipated, the toxins will build up to dangerous levels. I decide to buy Gatorade of various types and see what flavor she likes. Then we'll get the dry kind and mix it at home. The nurse also tells us that cisplatin can dull taste buds, as in you can no longer taste your food. So just a quick reflection here. Basically, we're still there in the office, but this is just me, I'm journaling and I'm just thinking ahead, okay, note to self. I've got to find a way to make sure after this chemo ends that when we get home, that Mom is drinking tons and tons of water, or she's going to end up in the hospital. So what you heard me saying basically was trying to figure out ways to track Mom's water intake, and then also ways to make it appealing. Ergo, adding different types of dry powdered Gatorade flavors to make it more interesting to her. Okay, back to the story. So, they first start a saline drip of sodium chloride. The nurse flushes the line. He pulls it out through the syringe to make sure that the line isn't blocked. Then comes Lanzapine, Zofran, and dexamethasone. Dexamethasone is for the nausea. So far today, Mom has had a half a cup of cornflakes and an unopened bottle of Coke. But she looks a bit panicky pondering the chemo and suddenly says she's hungry. So I dropped down to the little hospital cafe, and they actually have a nice selection of sandwiches and goodies. I return, and now she's actually eating a chicken salad sandwich from a volunteer cart that had wheeled by. Here's why she's eating. The doctor defused my mom's belief that all cancer patients feel so sick that they can't eat. She instead told Mom to eat a lot, as much as she can. And Mom looked confused in that conversation. She was rewiring her beliefs in real time. She was a bit confused, I think, and it broke the paradigm wherein she is meant to become emaciated from cancer treatments. Maybe she isn't supposed to clutch her stomach while eating brownie a la modes at restaurants after all. So just like that, my mom now sees her situation differently. It's weird to see how immediate this is. Now her cancer paradigm suddenly includes food, just like that, all different. Mom is now munching chips, eating a sandwich, and drinking Gatorade. Who can keep up? So, I think I probably talked about this in another couple paragraphs, but this is just looking back on this. Like, now I can look back on it and more so easily tell that this is the dementia. Mom could be sort of childlike if you approached her with authority and said, this is what you should do. Sometimes my mom would be in almost like a childlike frame of mind, and she'd be like, that's what I will do. And she would just do it. I mean, other times she would fight you tooth and nail on the simplest thing, but especially if a doctor tells Mom to do it differently, then at least for a short period of time, Mom would completely mold her ideology to what the doctor had just told her. So it's pretty wild. Okay, update, 12 noon. Now she is getting Emend dripped into the saline line. I actually don't remember what Emend is. You can Google that. It's spelled E-M-E-N-D. The doc tells me that she will get 70 milligrams of cisplatin, which is apparently a sort of low dose. Update, 12:20 p.m. So it's just 20 minutes later since the last one. She actually asks me to go and get her more water. Since the doc said, quote unquote, you will drink water, at least a quart a day, Mom has now had half a quart in the last 2 hours. That's more than she has had in a 2-hour period than she has likely ever had in a day. My parents, they don't drink water. They make turtles look like water drunks. Not drinking water is like a religion for my mom. She only drinks sodas and sweet tea. Arnold Palmer's, to be specific. Oh, and right now, she is actually getting a foot massage from a hospital volunteer. Update, 1 p.m. Time for the cisplatin. What is it? I researched, Googled the heck out of every single drug involved in Mom's treatments, and then pasted them in my journal. So here you go. Cisplatin. Cisplatin injection. CIS. Okay, I'm going to try to pronounce this word. Diamine dichloropplatinum is a heavy metal complex containing a central atom of platinum surrounded by 2 chloride atoms and 2 ammonia molecules in the CIS position. It is a white powder with the molecular formula PTC12H6N2 and a molecular weight of 300.05. It is soluble in water or saline at 1 milligrams/milliliters and in dimethylformamide at 24 milligrams milliliters. It has a melting point of 207 degrees Celsius. I bet you're glad you know that now. Okay, and this is what we are putting into our bodies. So it's essentially a form of heavy metal poisoning that disrupts our DNA's ability to function. Pretend that DNA is just a software program that tells cells what to do. And right now, her DNA is creating new code with a spelling error in the code. That error is creating the wrong cells in the wrong places. Cancer. If they wipe the DNA that is misspelling cellular structure, then it might knock out the cancer. This is essentially the premise of most chemotherapy, as far as I understand it. So the nurse puts on protective gear. He was literally wearing a full plastic shield face mask and very big heavy-duty gloves. He pointedly verifies my mom is who she is and that he is giving the right stuff. A nearby nurse double verifies all these facts. He starts the drip at 12:59 p.m. He says she won't feel a thing. I'm wondering if mom will be that 1 in a million who gets the rare anaphylactic reaction I've read about. That would be normal for her. 6 p.m. Written at Stewart's donated free house. She didn't. She didn't have the anaphylactic reaction. She did infiltrate, though, close to the end. Infiltration is when the needle in a vein pokes through the vein wall or the vein wall is compromised, and the needle is then delivering fluid into a space other than inside the vein. This usually causes swelling as the delivered fluid fills the space, sometimes referred to as the third space. Right as Dad came in to switch off with me, her vein popped and the fluid went into the third space. I caught it right away, but besides that, we just chilled out. And just in case you're wondering how I caught it, it's really easy to tell when someone has a needle that has compromised the vein wall and it's going into the third space. Basically, you will just see an area just adjacent to the needle that starts, basically the surface of their skin starts bubbling up, almost like a bruise or swelling, but with no bruising or redness. It's just their skin just starts to sort of, it's like there's like a little balloon sort of slowly inflating, though sometimes not super slow. So anyway, that's something to be on the watch for if you're ever sitting next to a loved one and they have really if they're a lot older and they have a history of third space infiltrations, or the doctors have said this person, is sort of has weak veins. It's just something to look out for. Anyway, so right as Dad came in to switch off with me, her vein popped and the fluid went into third space. I caught it right away. But besides that, we just chilled out. She sat there, she slept. I sat there, I read a book. The nurses were awesome and friendly. I made some trips to the food bar. Mom kept eating and drinking. She peed a lot. That meant a lot of complicated travel. It required a lot of back and forth with the infusion trolley to the bathrooms. Okay, so to explain what I mean by this is when you're having the infusion, basically, imagine that there is this bag of cisplatin. All right, so you've got this plastic bag. If you have never seen an infusion bag, it's just like a basic IV drip bag. So think about like a great big Ziploc. And it's attached to the top of this metal thing that's on 4 wheels, like a post. So when you stand up and you push along this infusion trolley, it can travel with you. And coming out of the bottom of the Ziploc bag is a plastic tube that is inserted into your body. And so the infusion is very slow with cisplatin, at least I can verify that in my mom's case. And so basically, though, because mom listened to the doctor and she was drinking like a fish, we had to go to the bathroom a lot, which meant mom getting up with the infusion trolley and having to roll her body to the bathroom. And she has balance issues. And so suddenly, this was a lot more complicated than I thought it would be. So back to my writing. Also, mom has balance issues due to the dementia. At this point, mom was still walking or using a walker. So that's a backstory note I put in the story. So getting up to pee was not a simple matter. It was an all-hands-on-deck balancing act to have her strolling down the corridors to the bathrooms with that trolley with chemo bags on it. Also of note, bathrooms aren't always empty when you get there. So waiting and leaning on a wall might be attempted. Sometimes you have to go back to your chemo chair and wait to try again. Note to hospitals, please build seating next to your bathrooms in chemo wards, okay? So it's something to consider. A lot of people don't have this, right? Most people who are getting chemo hopefully don't have dementia. And so the balance stuff hopefully isn't an issue. But if your loved one has cancer and dementia at the same time, and they're getting chemo and they have balance issues, or let's just say if your LO has balance issues and they're getting treatment, just be thinking about this when you go to the chemo ward. Like, be sneaky. Like, honestly, if I was doing this all over again, I would have moved a chair into the hallway next to the bathroom, so mom always had a place to sit. Because there were times when she was leaning against the walls, and just sort of losing her mind because she had to wait. And you do not want an angry person with dementia losing their patience while they're leaning against a wall getting chemo through an infusion trolley. It's a bad situation. Okay, back to the reading. Anyway, but she never got nauseated. She cruised through it. It was odd. When Dad got there to relieve me because he and I were trying to do shifts, and I left, we had about 2 hours remaining in the infusion. I went to the car in the parking deck, and I laid down on the floor in the back of the minivan, and I fell asleep in probably less than 30 seconds. I had an alarm set. I woke up exactly 2 hours later when the alarm went off. Actually, no. It says here, okay, I thought I set an alarm. I did not set an alarm. Apparently, I left my ringer on. Okay. I woke up 2 hours later when Dad called on my cell to tell me that they were finally done. That's how I woke up. Okay, so they were now in the radiation waiting room. Yes, after chemo, Mom would then have to go down to the radiation center and receive a radiation treatment. I had a very hard time waking up. Molasses. But I dragged myself out of the car and I walked in to discover that she was still in the radiation waiting room with Dad. But by now it was 4:15 p.m. or so. We had been in the hospital since 8:05 a.m. at this point. No matter how good or bad your day is, being inside in a 4-walled medical facility feels like shit after 8 hours. You feel stuck, like you'll never get out again. By that time, we had sat in 5 different waiting areas during the day. Anyway, once the radiation was complete, the day was finally over. We left the hospital at 5:30 p.m. Thank God. We drove to our new house at Stewart's, which was only 10 minutes away. Thank God. Again. Mom went straight upstairs and is sleeping now. I am typing this 5 feet away from her while sitting on the floor. The laptop is propped up against one of her flower-covered luggage pieces. I am fried. I could leave and do something just for me, but I don't feel like climbing or running or anything. Mom didn't get violently ill from the chemo or the radiation. Dad is intact as well now. Dad is intact as well now that the tension of the first chemo is behind us. We only have to do 5 more Mondays as chemo is scheduled for 5 times and 5 Mondays in a row. I think we can do that. Mostly I'm just integrating how different Mom is. She shifted a ton while getting the chemo. All the built-up stigma was suddenly no longer something to fear. We were officially in the middle of all of it. You spend your whole life hearing of the dreaded chemo. So when or if you end up needing it, what else can you do but feel like it's your doom? Mom just woke up and asked me to get her some cookies, which I did. 10:30 p.m. This is a list I have been working on. My to-do list for tomorrow, next day, and beyond. I'm sitting here and just trying to get everything figured out. It's too much. My brain is melting. Where's the user manual for all this? 11:39 p.m. Update. Still in Stewart's donated free house. I'm down in the den. Mom is comfy. I am finally off duty. I created a medication, bowel movement, water consumption, food consumption tracking sheet in Google Sheets, and then I transferred a lot of it onto a huge dry erase board. The board is in Mom's room. Big letters. It took me like 3 hours to figure out all the notes from the doctor. I also had to get rid of about 20 other extra fucking prescription bottles that Mom already had. They were all in the nooks and crannies of her luggage and multiple purses. These meds have nothing to do with this treatment at all, but she brought them with her anyway. Also, if I had not read a random handout from the doctor, my mom's anti-nausea med protocol never would have happened. Anti-nausea med protocol is what the docs called the drugs she was to take to ward off or reduce nausea symptoms. This is very common, by the way, sidebar. This is very common in treatment because most chemotherapy and radiation makes people feel nauseous. You always want to ask, what's my anti-nausea med protocol? And in fact, I would ask way before your treatment even starts, because most doctors are not going to fucking tell you what your anti-nausea med protocol is until like the day you start treatment. At least that's how it was for us. So what I thought was as needed anti-nausea med protocol drugs, I read a sheet that actually told me they are mandatory for the first 4 days post-chemo. The docs only told us this verbally once, but the labels on the bottles only say as needed. Well, that's crazy. What if I hadn't read the handout about the protocol? What if I didn't know how to be hyper-organized and create spreadsheets and visually map stuff on a 5 fucking foot wide dry erase board? Seriously, how can I be expected to track all this new stuff on the same day that their loved one spent 10 hours in the hospital? If I didn't have shit tons of young person energy, I never could have done this. Dad was just wiped out. He crashed hard. Mom crashed hard. I was the lone wake person trying really hard to grasp milligrams, side effects, dosage levels, frequency, etc., etc., etc. Then I had to do the dishes. Update, 1 a.m. Mom has Ativan brain. But actually, hold on, let me circle back to this. Like, I hope what I said here made sense. But basically, the doctors were just like, oh, if she doesn't feel good, have her take her anti-nausea med protocol meds. And I was like, okay. And then I read a handout from the doctor. And this handout wasn't given to me like anything special. It was just like, here's a big fucking stack of paper. Okay. And then I happened to be going through the big fucking stack of paper. And then I see that it says it's mandatory that mom be taking anti-nausea med protocol on a regular basis for the first 4 days. So again, it's just like one of these things where a really consistent theme is hospitals don't communicate things well. And you have to assume that. Like, you don't have to be mad like I am. Like, I'm still mad 4 years later, obviously. 5 years later, I'm still pissed. But it's like they can do better. But these are just the types of things that always fall in between the cracks. So push hard on the medical staff. Make them tell you forcefully, you need to tell me, is this mandatory or is it just recommended? I can't stress enough how much you have to force these people to answer your questions. Their focus is get the treatment done, get them out the door. What you do at home, they don't really seem to focus on that, in my experience. You have to make them tell you what you're supposed to be doing at home. Okay, update 1 a.m. Mom has Ativan brain. I heard a loud radio upstairs, so I went up to check. Mom is awake, in bed, lights on. She's fiddling around with her damn CPAP machine headgear. So just in case you don't know what a CPAP is, it stands for continuous positive air pressure, I think. A lot of people have these to help them with sleep apnea. It's like this crazy thing you put on your head, and it's hooked up to like this machine that runs a little like compressor that sends a constant amount of air pressure, I think, into your nose and your mouth. I can't remember what they look like, but mom and dad both had CPAP machines that are next to their bed. So anyway, she's fiddling around with her damn CPAP machine headgear. Full disclosure, I am thoroughly convinced that CPAP in general is the most bullshit advance in science I have ever heard of. Really? What the fuck did people do for millennia before CPAP machines? Why anyone would put all that shit on their heads, it's just exactly the stupid kind of thing my mom adores about having something wrong. I'm just going to say it. CPAP headgear is sports clothing for elite hypochondriacs. And Mom, you're an all-star, baby. Anyway, we spend nearly 40 minutes trying to figure out how to orient her goddamn headgear. Why? Well, because she had taken it apart until it no longer functioned. Then she pulled out a new one from a different bag and couldn't figure out how to put it all back together again. I continuously set it up for her. I fixed it. And then she would methodically and comically undo it over and over again, saying, "It's not right." She would ask me to turn it a certain way, and I would do it. Then she says, "No, not that way, the other way." So I would turn it the other way, and it just went on and on. Finally, I recalled that she took Ativan and Zofran both this evening. She's high. This is her first time taking Ativan. And to someone like Mom, it's like she is drunk. Her speech is slurry. Her motions are swimmy. She's weaving on her feet when she stands. I'm trying not to laugh, but what isn't funny is that she can't be reasoned with. When I tell her that she is easily confused by this all because of the medications, she denies it. Then she gets mad. Then I finally get a bit forceful and I fix her headgear and I say, "Mom, it's fixed. Leave it alone." And she finally doesn't take it apart. Then she announces at nearly 2 a.m. that she's ready for a bath. This is not reasoned thinking. This is drunk think. I tell her no. She says that she simply must, and that she's doing it no matter what I say. Well, what can I do? Have a huge fight with Cancer Mom at 1:40 a.m.? The situation is fucking over the top. I need sleep. We all need sleep. I try to stay calm. I go and get Dad. I explain the situation. And to be honest, neither of us knows what to do exactly. Mom and her frame of mind, when you tell her no, is explosive. Mom on drugs? We don't know how she'll react. Will she take a swing? Will she start screaming? Will she try to run down the wooden steps? We freeze up. I have no idea what to do. So I just say that she can take her bath, but that she is not in her right mind and needs help so she doesn't lose her balance getting in and out of the tub. She gets mad and she gets childish and whiny. I assign Dad to the task. Mom walks to the bathroom and approaches Dad. He's standing in the hall. She low growls, "Get away from me. I mean it." Dad takes a step back. Mom enters the bathroom. I give up and I come downstairs. Note to self. Drunk Mom is sitting next to all of her medications. I need to get all of her meds away from her and into another space. And what I mean there is, while Mom was in the bathtub, I realized, wait a minute. All of those anti-nausea meds, Ativan included, are sitting next to her bed. But I was so exhausted, I forgot to take the meds away from her and separate her from them. Because what Mom would do, is she would forget that she had just taken it, and then she would take another one. So I was still in the process of working on my habit of making sure I always had meds away from her. So, and this is the last paragraph here, there's nothing stopping her from being high on meds and deciding that she needs more and just taking them while Dad and I are asleep or not in the room. All those unused pills up there in the room, though, shit, she's got enough narcotics to start a legit street corner side hustle. Oxy, Hydro, all sorts of barbiturates and muscle relaxers. Yeah, that shit has got to go. So I'm going to stop there for this reading and just try to gather my thoughts here and just think if there's anything I need to add. There's a lot to digest there. I guess one thing that I'm self-conscious of while reading is I sound angry. I still am. I don't know if I'll never not be angry about this stuff. It was all just, it felt, especially now, I think, looking back on it even more, I understand now how absolutely useless and unnecessary everything we went through was. Spoiler alert, mom dies in the end. So none of this shit helped her. It's just a lot of fucking suffering. And at the time, even though we were like in the fight, there was a deep sense of futility that I couldn't put my finger on at this early stage. Like, I knew I felt futile and I knew it felt useless, but I thought that was just like me being exhausted. I gotta say, looking back on it, I kind of felt like I knew where everything was heading, and I just, couldn't really go there 100%, but it was enough that I was angry most of the time. So yeah, it's interesting. I'm reading this and I'm like, I don't want to sound angry, but I'm also trying to I'm just being true to like this journal entry. Like, I'm journaling at 1:40 a.m. I'd been going since 7 a.m. that day. And it was just insane. It's so hard to explain the insanity of it all, where you're trying to get cancer treatment for someone to save their life as their mind is like getting tunnel vision with dementia, and they're taking pills. And it's just crazy. Hard to make sense out of the weird things that we do to try to sustain life at all costs. That's my perspective there. Oh, also, I guess I do want to go back up to the CPAP thing, because, yeah, I'm pretty hard on CPAP users. I personally love my line about CPAP headgear as sports clothing for elite hypochondriacs. I understand that some people really need it. I really do. But there's just some inventions that we do medically speaking that I think are so crazy. Everyone's like, oh, I need CPAP headgear. And I'm just going to be blunt. Like, my thing still is like, oh yeah, well, what did we do for 50,000, 100,000 years of humans living on the planet Earth without CPAP headgear? We figured it out, y'all. Like, good Lord. But probably the reason I'm most angry about it is because my mom loved having something wrong, always. And so for her, putting on CPAP headgear literally made her feel important. Like, it's so hard for me to explain. Like, if you live with a hypochondriac or you were raised by one and you see their joy and glee at realizing something's wrong that they get to see a doctor for, so then they can get prescribed something like, oh, a big fucking piece of plastic that they attach to their head, and you see that joy that they experience, I guess part of what you think is, you don't see them being as happy. What am I trying to say? My mom could find more joy in that than she could find joy in things that people should find joy in, like a beautiful day, her children, things we're actually really supposed to celebrate. Instead, because of my mom's emptiness, because of the things that she struggled with, she found so much validation in having something wrong with her. The CPAP headgear was like wearing a crown, made her feel important. So that's why I'm spicy about CPAP. So there's my explanation. I hope all you CPAP users listening to this don't hate me too hard. Anyway, I'm going to stop it there. And, well, no, I'm going to read my outro. You don't get to escape without the outro because I put a lot of work into it. So here we go. Here's the ending. Before we go, let's talk about that podcast cover art. It's made by my youngest kid, Zoe Morris. And the intro and outro song, You Can't Stop Humming Out Loud, that's an original tune composed and sung by my eldest, Quinn. And I just realized I think I'm reading the wrong part. Let me start all over here. Before we go, let's talk about that project logo cover art. It's made by my youngest kid, Zoe. And yes, that's a photo of me climbing out of my mom's actual pillbox in the year 2020, thanks to the magic of Photoshop. And the intro and outro song, You Can't Stop Humming Out Loud, well, that's an original tune composed and sung by my eldest kid, Quinn. He recorded this when he was helping me take care of Mom, and he even played it for her. Last but not least, I had that track sound mastered by Jay Siebold at sieboldsound.com. If you ever need sound mastering and mixing work, be sure to look him up at sieboldsound.com, and I have him linked in the show notes. And on YouTube, I have posted a standalone video of just that song in case you want to play it on repeat. Links to both this podcast or this YouTube version will always be, that makes no sense. Let me rephrase that. Links to the podcast and YouTube versions will always be in the show notes descriptions. So if you're watching the YouTube and you want to do the podcast, look for the link and vice versa. And you might be wondering, why isn't Charlie deleting some of these like misspoken sentences or false starts? Here's why. Because after 10 years of being a documentary filmmaker and video editor and another podcast I produced, where I had to be such an OCD person about how every single sentence sounded, it's so freeing to leave in the way things actually came out of my mouth with this and to really not fix a damn thing. Very freeing. So you get all the missteps. All right. I'm calling it there. It's 12:11 a.m. and I really want to go to sleep.
If you want to know what I think, I won't give that up for free. Put a penny in the crusher, on the back's my memory. I'll hold real still, you take the shot, but I don't want to see whether it turns out or not. It's all the same to me. If you want to know how I feel, put me down and walk away. My hands are already bloodied here in bed. I think I'll stay. In dreams I face dread most, mundane when walking down the street. My pounding heart shocks me awake the moment our eyes meet.